It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
This one's interesting. Are you financial sheep?
So we've talked about financial media and advisors and influencers, and now we're going to talk about society as a whole. Those voices out there that have an impact on us that we don't even realize have an impact.
By the way, society is if you think about everything we faced in 2020, if you think about the way people behave when we have market downturns, there's a reason when we talk to a retiree and we're talking about safe withdrawal rates and other things, we always say, look, this is a super conservative assumption because the reality is that when economies are in struggle zone, nobody keeps hitting the accelerator on their savings, even though we put that into our projections. We put that into our Monte Carlo analysis and stress tests. We know that the typical human is going to slam on the brakes as soon as we hit a downturn. And that's because you are influenced by those around you. You are influenced by society.
Yep. And I think the world around us wants to kind of lie to us about money, or maybe misrepresent it a little bit, or just get it wrong. I think one of the things that I think is so funny, growing up in church, I always used to hear folks say, well, you know that money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And I remember I heard that growing up, and I was like, well, I know a bunch of really nice, wealthy people. That can't be right. Well, they obviously had gotten the verse wrong. It doesn't say that money is the root of all evil. It says that love of money is the root of all evil.
Well, it's like most things. There's a little kernel of truth that the whole context is not put into perspective. So the actual verse, by the way, that when people say money is the root of all evil, they're really talking about 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. And I'm just going to take a part of it. This is the important part that makes the point. By the way, we also had a debate about which version. I'm not even going to get into that whole discussion in the pre-show planning. But Pharisee here with his snobby translation versus me with my training wheels. But here's the actual verse. For the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil. I'm going to repeat that. For the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil.
Yep.
So I think that goes back to the question we keep asking, and I think I love it when, in a very Seinfeld-esque way, things come full circle. What is your why? I mean, what is actually driving your intent? What wakes you up in the morning? What does your heart say? There's a reason we say what's your why, and because don't love the money. Understand that it's a tool. Understand what its purpose is, and I think you'll be on much safer territory and unstable ground.
So, once we kind of get past understanding, okay, well, there's nothing inherently wrong with being wealthy. There's nothing inherently wrong with having resources. We have to think about other lies that society tells us about folks who have achieved some level of wealth or who have achieved some level of success. And this one is one that I think is just really, really frustrating too.
Well, yeah, I fell prey to this. I tell the story all the time is that I grew up thinking wealthy people, the only way they could have got there was really at the expense of someone else. It had to have been a zero-sum game. For this person to be successful, they had to have trashed or taken advantage of somebody here. That's not the way. Once you actually start studying wealth, understanding what creates wealth, it doesn't necessarily work that way.
That's right.
So let's actually show them what is the perception versus the reality.
Yeah, so if we ask the question, do millionaires inherit their wealth? 74% of millennials believe that most millionaires inherited their wealth. So if they were wealthy, it came from mom and dad.
Well, I want to add, because I know you've gone ahead and pulled the baby boomers. I think, because I'll just make a broad statement. Guys, we speak curses upon ourselves, and we have limiting beliefs when somebody tells you this. And be careful who you let into your brain, because this is what drives me crazy. We both come from very humble beginnings. Yep. And I think that, I had so many people in my background who were telling you those son of a guns taking advantage of people. It's just in our society right now that when we see 74% of millennials, this is believe that millionaires inherited, 52% of baby boomers believe it, that's still the majority of the public thinks that the only way you become wealthy is to get lucky. And if you want more proof of this, look at who buys lottery tickets. Because I think a lot of people who are in lower income situations, they think there's no way out and that they have to just wait for the fates to smile upon them by buying a lottery ticket. I hate that. Yep. I hate that. That's a limiting belief. If you start early enough, if you start often enough when you're young, you too can be successful. And it's that easy.
Yeah, and so we actually took this a step further. When we did our Money Guy Wealth Survey, this is what we found the reality to be. Only 11% of the millionaires that we interviewed inherited over $100,000.
So that's actually a chunk of money.
It's a chunk. Yep.
So
if you inherit $100,000, that's a good start.
Essentially, the people that think that 74% of millionaires are inherited, the actual number is closer to 11% of 100,000. Now, we put another stat in here.
So 12% of millionaires inherited some money, but it wasn't over $100,000. So they inherited something, but it was less than $100,000.
I also think when you look at these stats, you have to be careful because a lot of these people, I think, were successful. Their parents might have passed away after they had reached success. Because realize you don't inherit typically until your parents pass away.
Right.
So a lot of these people might have already navigated to success, and then their parents passed away, and that's when they inherited the $25,000, from divvying up the estate. So it's interesting, but if that leaves a pretty big chunk, Bo.
Yeah, the big chunk is 77% of the millionaires that we interviewed inherited nothing, did not receive any. They were all first generation. They built it themselves.
So I think that that's interesting because what that ties into is if you think about, this is our own Money Guy wealth study and survey. We do this every year, started last year, so it's our first inaugural. You see, I like how I did that, added a little depth to it, even though we've only done 1 year. But I did think it was interesting because this did add some depth to it, is that we have 77% of our clients didn't inherit anything. Well, at least we have some back testing this. If you look at 1996, The Millionaire Next Door, I display it proudly. The number was 80% are first generation affluent. If you go look at the next Millionaire Next Door by Chris Hogan, I've got that behind me too, from Ramsey Solutions. His number is 86% are first generation.
That was Sarah Fallow's. The next Millionaire Next Door.
The Millionaire Next Door
Yeah.
in 2016. That was Sarah. And then you got Chris Hogan with Everyday Millionaires. His was 79% nothing, 84% less than $100,000.
Yep.
Guys, that ties in nicely. This is not a fluke. This is not because we have different types of clients, as you heard from Millionaire Next Door, from the next Millionaire Next Door, as well as Everyday Millionaires. It all ties directly into our content and our research that about 80% of millionaires are first generation. Now, look, there's a dark side to this, and this is something that you ought to use. 70% of second generation blows the money of the wealthy first generation. 90% by the time you get to the grandkids. So this is why it's always an ever cleansing process and system to wealth creation. So don't let some limiting belief that the system's against you keep you from actually being that first generation that breaks seven figures.
Yeah, so if you're that young person listening and you say, man, I want to be a millionaire, great, do it. You can. Don't let that stop you. Now, if you're that older person who has reached some success and you have millionaire status, don't let your kids be part of that statistic that burns through it. Start teaching them how to steward that well so that it's not a vicious repeating cycle.
So once again, we have resources because I want you to know that don't let the limiting belief, go ahead and start wiring your brain to think you can do this and get excited about it. Go to moneyguy.com/resources and you're going to see we have a money multiplier. What's the actual official title on it?
How powerful are your dollars? Reby is going to have that baked into my bread. How powerful are your dollars is the name of it.
If you've ever wanted, because you hear us say $1 has the opportunity to turn into $88, you go, well, I'm 32. We actually have the number for you. I'm 46. Well, you can go look at our money multiplier worksheet, and it's going to help you know how powerful are your dollars. What do you need to do to build to have the level of resources that will just put you on that next level of financial success so your money works as hard as you do with your back, your brains, your eyes, and your hands. All of it can be taken care of with your army of dollar bills if you'll just let the money start doing the work.
Building wealth is surprisingly simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
It becomes a little bit easier, though, if you can take this and recognize who those outside influences are that are trying to steer you in one way or the other, and you can just be inoculated from that influence, and you can focus on doing what you're supposed to be doing the way you're supposed to be doing. And we're going to be your tour guides to help keep you all along that path to financial independence.
So guys, go subscribe, go out to YouTube. We need to get to 100,000 by year end. Also understand the abundance cycle. Yeah, that's right. We keep loading you up with tons of free advice. This was more of a behavioral lesson that we've given today, how to protect yourself. But we also do some really meaty, nerdy stuff too. Go out there and check out some of our 401k and other shows. That is the abundance cycle. You come learn, apply, grow. We know you're going to graduate to the level that you will need a financial advisor, and we hope that you'll come back to where it all started. Remember, if you want an accelerator for the process, go grab our free resource, the Financial Order of Operations at moneyguy.com/resources. And if you want to speed up the process with some nudging from us, some private Facebook group, some worksheets, some data gathering forms, you can go sign up for the premium version, which right now is at a discounted price until the month end. Go sign up, Financial Order of Operations. Thanks so much, guys. We have a great time creating content. We'll be back soon with even more new shows.